Not everything that is dark looks dark, and not all goodness is sincere. We often trust people who seem kind, generous, even spiritually evolved. We admire their light, but what if that light is also a disguise, a strategy? What if some of the people who seem good are simply better at hiding their shadow? Carl Jung taught us that every human being carries a shadow, the unknown, unconscious parts of ourselves we refuse to accept. And the more we deny that darkness, the more power it gains. That includes the people we admire the most. This video isn't about demonizing kindness. It's about revealing a deeper truth, that the shadow can act even in those who appear the most virtuous. Sometimes the nicest people are just the best at covering their inner wounds. Sometimes their love is actually control. Their empathy is guilt. Their peace is a fragile mask. What does it mean to be good, really? And how can we know when someone's light is genuine or when it's a reaction to everything they're unwilling to face? Carl Jung left us answers. But first, we need to question what we think we know about goodness. Carl Jung believed that what we repress doesn't die, it hides. The shadow, that hidden part of ourselves we don't want to admit exists, doesn't go away when we ignore it. It just finds other ways to act. And one of the most dangerous forms it takes is virtue. We've been taught to associate goodness with safety, but not all acts of kindness are clean. Sometimes, a person's need to be good is actually a need to avoid their darkness. Their smile is a shield. Their generosity is guilt. Their humility is fear of being seen. Think of the person who's always giving, but secretly resents everyone. Or the one who forgives everything but deep down uses forgiveness as a way to feel superior. Jung warned us, when someone is overly identified with the light, the shadow doesn't disappear. It grows in secret. And here's the subtle danger. These people often believe their own disguise. They're not consciously deceiving others. They're unconsciously deceiving themselves. And that's why their kindness can turn manipulative. They give to be needed. They help to gain control. They listen, only to be admired for listening. This isn't about judging others. It's about becoming conscious. Jung said, "We all wear a mask, and the time comes when we cannot remove it without removing some of our own skin." That's what makes this form of the shadow so insidious. It hides in people who appear harmless, who crave moral approval, who make their entire identity depend on being seen as good. True shadow work doesn't mean rejecting kindness. It means asking, why am I doing this? Is it love? Or is it fear of being unloved? Is it generosity? Or is it subtle control? Because when the shadow hides behind the mask of virtue, that's when it manipulates without being seen. One of the most powerful disguises the shadow can wear is spiritual identity. Jung warned us that the brighter the persona, the darker the shadow behind it. And nowhere is that more evident than in the spiritual world, or in people who are deeply attached to being good. You've probably met someone like this. They don't get angry. They don't judge. They are always peaceful, always kind. On the surface, they seem enlightened, but there's a quiet discomfort around them, like something isn't real, because often it isn't. Jung said that those who deny their darkness become possessed by it in indirect ways. When someone believes they are above negative emotions, they don't transcend the shadow, they suppress it. That suppressed energy doesn't disappear. It seeps out as spiritual arrogance, as moral superiority, as judgment disguised as compassion. These are the people who will gently correct you, but with a condescending smile, who lovingly call out your flaws, but never their own, who preach forgiveness but hold secret grudges, who meditate every day but can't tolerate being challenged. And most of all, they live inside a story. I'm not like them. I've evolved. That belief, I'm better because I'm good, is the shadow's proudest trick. It wraps ego in light. And as long as we believe we're beyond the shadow, we simply stop looking for it. We build a prison made of spiritual language, a mask with glowing edges. Jung taught that real wholeness comes from integration, not denial. From being able to say, yes, I can be angry, I can be selfish, I can be manipulative, and I take responsibility for that. That is humility. That is maturity. That is the beginning of true freedom. Spiritual ego isn't about spirit. It's about control. It doesn't connect, competes. It doesn't serve truth. It serves image. You don't become whole by rising above the shadow. You become whole by walking straight into it, with honesty, compassion, and no need to perform purity. Because the most dangerous person is the one who believes they have no darkness left. The shadow doesn't need rage to act. It doesn't need cruelty. It can show up softly in the most well-intentioned places, and in people who would never believe they're doing harm. Some of the most common signs of an active shadow in good people are moral judgment, emotional superiority, and subtle control. These traits don't scream danger. They whisper it. Have you ever met someone who cares about everyone, but seems to always point out what others are doing wrong? Or someone who constantly sacrifices themselves for others, but reminds you of it all the time? That's not love. That's control dressed as kindness. The mother who gives endlessly, but silently expects loyalty and obedience. The coworker who helps everyone, but needs to be the center of praise. The spiritual teacher who talks about compassion, but dismisses criticism with passive aggression. These people don't appear dangerous, but their presence slowly erodes your clarity, your confidence, your inner peace. Carl Jung explained that when the shadow is not integrated, it acts autonomously. These people aren't aware they're doing it. They may believe they're noble, but if you listen closely, you'll feel the tension, the need to be seen a certain way, the pressure to maintain a persona. Another sign, chronic positivity. The person who never allows sadness, anger, or conflict to surface. They speak in affirmations, but suppress any real emotion. They avoid discomfort not because they're healed, but because they're scared of what they might find inside. And then there's the projection, blaming others for traits they secretly fear in themselves. The overly pure person who sees manipulation in everyone else. The pacifist who accuses others of aggression while quietly building resentment. The empathetic person who slowly turns into a martyr. Jung said, "Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. But when that reflection is denied, it becomes a weapon, especially in the hands of those who think they've already done the work." So how do we spot it? Watch for energy more than words. Feel the dissonance between what someone says and what they radiate. Real goodness is calm. It doesn't need attention. It doesn't defend itself. Feels light, but shadow-driven goodness feels heavy. It demands recognition. It manipulates quietly, and it makes you question your instincts. When goodness makes you feel small, it's probably not coming from love. Carl Jung didn't tell us to fight the shadow. He told us to meet it. Integration isn't about winning a battle between good and evil inside of us. It's about realizing there was never a battle, just misunderstanding, just parts of ourselves left in the dark, waiting to be seen with compassion. You don't need to destroy your anger, your jealousy, your need for attention. You need to understand them. They're messengers, not enemies. They're pieces of your story that never got to speak. Jung believed that true healing starts when we become conscious of the unconscious. When we stop saying, "I'm not like that," and start saying, "I might be, and that's okay." That simple honesty breaks the illusion of perfection. And suddenly, you're not a performance anymore. You're a person. Being good doesn't mean being pure. It means being whole. And wholeness includes contradiction, light and shadow, confidence and doubt, kindness and anger. The most dangerous thing isn't the darkness we know. It's the one we pretend isn't there. Because while we ignore it, it makes decisions for us. It drives how we love, how we judge, how we protect ourselves, and worst of all, how we hurt others while thinking we're helping. You don't have to be perfect, but you do have to be honest. That's what Jung asked of us, not to transcend humanity, but to embrace it fully. Because the shadow doesn't want to destroy you, it just wants to be heard. We've been taught to admire goodness, but Carl Jung showed us that unexamined. Goodness can be just another mask, and sometimes it's the people who seem the kindest who are furthest from themselves. This isn't a call to distrust others. It's a call to trust your intuition, to look beyond appearances, to question the energy behind someone's kindness and your own. True integrity isn't about always doing the right thing. It's about being real, about being willing to look at your shadow and choosing to be kind anyway. You don't have to fear your darkness. You just have to know it. And when you do, your light becomes something no mask could ever imitate. Subscribe if you want to keep going deeper into the inner world.